Hello Alice in Chains fans, and welcome to episode number 5 of the Let's Learn Facelift Guitar and Analysis series. Today, we will be addressing our own amnesia. Amnesia example number 1 is forgetting how to play the guitar. I can't remember the frets. I can't remember the chords. I can't remember to tune my guitar down to E flat, even though the rest of the band is already there. Have you ever tried playing Man in the Box in standard tuning? Don't even try it. It sucks. Amnesia example number 2 alludes to a lyrical passage within the song that reads as such. "Excuse the tude, but I haven't eaten today. My eyes are turning gray." We are going to avoid this disposition at all costs, with a big old BLT, a Big Mac, some fried Oreos, a big plate of nachos, and 10,000 grains of rice with soy sauce, through every single note, every single time change, every single chord progression in a full, detailed musical analysis of I Can't Remember from Facelift. The song is called I Can't Remember. I Can't Remember is a relatively simple track that relies heavily on the blues for most of its melodic content, but it does veer into some very colorful territory that removes us from any kind of generic classification. The introduction features a 12-string acoustic guitar as the main driving force behind the arpeggios. The verse section, however, features a heavy and syncopated blues riff to offer some contrast to the more atmospheric nature of the introduction. This pattern continues throughout the rest of the song, even as the bridge and solo progress. So to understate this alternation would be a tragically foolish mistake. Alright, so with all that said, let's get into that 12-string riff that kicks off the entire song. I bet you thought I was going to have an electric guitar in my hand because this band is so badass. Well, guess what? I already told you. We're going to do 12-string acoustic here. Now, before we even start this riff, we got to tune our guitars down to E flat standard tuning to get that bone-crushing sound of Jerry Cantrell. And that reads as such: E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B flat, and E flat. If you have a tuner, it's going to read sharps: D sharp, G sharp, C sharp, F sharp, A sharp, and D sharp again. Now, the 12-string is especially treacherous when it comes to tuning down to E flat because you got to tune double the strings. It kind of sucks, but you know what? Just deal with it. And here is that first arpeggio pattern. I'll start off with the positions. We're starting on the 4th fret of the G. Here we go. 3rd fret. 4th fret, 2nd fret. Don't see that too often. Repeat, 4th fret, 3rd fret. 4th, 2nd. So let's dig into what's happening there. So, of course, we're on the 4th fret of the G. So the next note that we hit on the B string is actually going to be the same note. Alright, so these are both B's, just played in unison, and with a nice chime of the 12 string with a higher octave on that G. Alright, so that high note, the E, alright, that's basically the root note, and the 5th being played together. So 5th on the B, 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 E, and then we go to A sharp. Whoa. Okay. So that A sharp is actually a sharp 4th. Alright? And when you play it with the E chord, it sounds like this. Wow. It sounds almost like something that Rush or Dream Theater would play, not Alice in Chains. Well, guess what? This band is not afraid to go into this complicated and sophisticated territory. I've said this many times, right? Don't doubt the AIC boys, alright? They do this kind of stuff. And it's very dissonant sounding, alright? Almost eerie, especially when it's played on the 12-string guitar. Now the next shape, do the same deal on the start. That's an E5, by the way, right? Root in the 5th, I said. Then we go to the 2nd fret. That's the sus4 of E, which sounds like this. Alright, so that sounds a little easier to handle. That almost feels like the Who behind Blue Eyes, while this feels like some alternate universe Rush song, maybe Limelight or something like that. But when you play it like that, it sounds a lot more mystical, a lot of mystique to that chord. But here's the sus4 and the sharp4. Both of those sounds are going on at the same time, which is incredibly uncommon. So let's get back into this again. The rhythm is not too bad. It's straight eighth notes in 4/4, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that pattern repeats. Now, the thing that makes it seem a little awkward or odd is the fact that it literally has odd groupings of notes. Check it out. You start off with a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 on the first measure, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Alright, so kind of cool how that works. It's a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Instead of just a straight 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We don't have any time for that kind of stuff. So let me just play it one more time for you. Here we go. Ready? And you want to make sure that you're playing both sets of strings, or both strings in the set, which might require you to hit the strings a little bit harder with that big old green pick that you probably don't have, but I have. I'm just messing with you. But when I say that this E sus4 and E sharp4 is not a common pairing, I mean that sincerely. Just listen to the way. I'm going to strum the two together. E sus4. Sounds kind of cool, but definitely not something you would hear ordinarily. There's one more crucial element that I left out, and it is held within the 12-string guitar. Take a listen. Right at the end of the fourth time through the riff is this cool fill on the acoustic guitar with some really great note choices right on the upbeat of 4, just prior to the final measure of the introduction. And this is the last thing we hear before getting into the verse. Check it out. Ready? So let's go over that position. This almost looks like it's in A minor instead of E minor. Kind of strange, huh? Well, anyway, here's what we're doing. You're going to start over on the 7th fret here, and then you're going to do this little rake to the D string like this. And you're going to do like a rake and a hammer on at the same time. And if you don't get that, you're not going to be able to make it sound right. So rake, hammer, and then kind of go either downstrokes all the way or down, up, down, up. Doesn't really matter because it's going pretty slow. But either way, you got to do those eighth notes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so it's going up an A minor scale, but there's an F sharp in there. So really we're in E minor, but we're just hitting a C natural on top, alright? So I don't know if this is a moment where Jerry Cantrell's like, I'm going to try it over here, try to play something in A minor even though it's in E minor. So if it's in E minor, it would sound like this. You hear that subtle difference? That C natural has more weight to it than the B natural. Alright, so could have just been an unconscious choice. It was probably done completely on accident, but you know what? It sounds pretty damn awesome. So kind of odd, you know, it's a little quirky sounding because it's an A minor on top of an E minor. But it could be foreshadowing for things to come because this sort of idea does come back during the bridge, but we'll get there. Don't worry about it. One more time, very slowly. Alright, and then holding out the B, which is the 5th of the E that happens afterward. Actually, let me play it from the riff one more time as well. Watch. Last time. You have to interrupt it right here. See, after that B string on the A, on the sus4, the E sus4, you got to get in there right on that upbeat at the end, all right? If you don't hit it there, you're not going to be able to have enough time to get through all those notes, all right? So don't fuck around too much or else I'm going to come eat you like a sack of potatoes. Fills are another classic element to Jerry Cantrell's guitar playing. He never fails to deliver something right in the pocket. He also never overplays and always keeps the song and composition in the highest regard. This will happen again later in the song, but until then, let's get into this attitudinal guitar riff in the blues for the first verse. The initial thing about this riff is how it drags. It almost feels too slow when you're playing it along to the recording. It's pure blues in a comically slow fashion. Here we go. Yeah. I kid you not, this is about the speed. More slow than that, but that's honestly not too far off the mark. So let's talk about what we have here. We basically have the flat 7 coming into the root on the 5th and 7th fret like this, with the low E string in there, okay? So you're having a slow and low bedrock, low E right here. Then you got to chug along on that E right there. Then you come here. Okay, nice and syncopated. Anytime you have space to fill, you gotta chug the E. Listen to that one more time. So far, the first note, the root coming from the flat 7th, is on the downbeat. And that flat 3rd right there is on an upbeat. And then coming up to the root again, that's on the upbeat. So down, up, up. And then in order to compensate for where we are in the measure, we have to hit 2 E's at the end, okay? Now the same thing continues for the next part, but we hit a different note. Check this out. Oh yeah, super bluesy, badass. Let me check that out. So it's the same intro. You're basically doing a half step bend, kind of choking it toward the end on the 7th fret there, and that creates a B flat, alright? So that sounds like this on top of an E. Ooh, that's dissonant, baby. That's a tritone interval, alright? And because it has the flat 3rd and the root as well, it almost sounds like a diminished triad, which sounds like this. Super diabolical. No joking around here. Alright, so a near diminished, but presenting itself as the blues. Alright, so this is the fine line that Jerry Cantrell likes to straddle here. He likes to make you think that it's just a nice blues riff, but he's really hinting at something a little more sinister here. So let's get those first 2 parts again. Here we go. Then we come around and do the first measure again, like this. And the last one, all of those power chords are in the blues, so flat 5, 4th, flat 3rd, alright? And then it comes in to come down to E again, alright, right after that. But all of those are syncopated, they're all in the upbeat, so up, 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 down, up, up, down, up, up, down, up, up, down, up, up, up. And I can't remember where we have to go next. I'm just kidding. Of course I remember, but I'm just trying to make a joke, people. Just trying to clear the mood a little bit, alright? We're getting too tense. I'm a teepee, I'm a wigwam, I'm a teepee, I'm a wigwam. Calm down, you're too tense. It's pretty self-explanatory, but let's get into it anyways. The A chord follows right after that blues lick. Here we go. that A chord for 2 bars, and then right back into the riff. Blues, A. Alright, it's very nice because that A is a half step away from that B flat, right? So we're already familiar, and we've already hit that A as well, so it's familiar territory. It's also the 4 chord in E minor, okay? Now we don't know whether it's major or minor yet, but we'll get there. And yeah, so that's the 4 chord A, right back to E, E minor. B flat, A, G, A. And then that's basically the entire thing. It's just I can't remember, and we gotta move on because this is super easy. Following the first chorus is a revisitation to the introduction. We have all the same parts, but it's condensed, only being played 2 times, with another unique ending in the electric guitar. So here, the dirty guitar takes the lead at the end instead of the 12 string. I'll play it from the chord. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. It's coming up. 2, 3, 4, 1. Alright, so a pretty simple and quick little blues lick, but it's in there, so let's do it. So, right after you do that, you gotta wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Technically 5 beats, but it's after beat 1 of the second measure, and you come in like this. Basically hit that 2nd fret, bluesy bend, alright? And then hit both the G and B string at the same time, alright? So E minor pentatonic, hammer, and then another pull-off right there, or a pull-off, not another one. So check it out. A little sloppy sounding too. You want to give it as much attitude as possible, as if you're wearing your sunglasses during the nighttime. Ready? One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Pretty cool. The next section, the bridge section, follows through a very similar idea repetitively over and over again. So let's go through the first pass of this progression here. This sequence, accompanied by the vocals, is yet another manifestation of the blues, very similar to the chord progression that we saw before. But instead we have an arpeggio line that's played instead, sort of like Stone Temple Pilots' Creep. I'm half the man I used to be, half the man I used to be, half the man I used to be. Anyway, here's the riff. Ready? E5, G sus2, A4 to that little blues line. Then we hold that one. Alright, so 3 unique endings across a very similar idea. So we start off with an E power chord, E5, to G sus2, alright? So E5 is E, B, E, root 5th root. G sus2 is G, A, G, or root 2nd 5th, alright? 1, 2, 5. And then we go right to here. That's just an A with an added 4th on top of it. So you can say it's like a sort of like a sus4 on the A instead. And then, so you want to grab that D string once again, which actually becomes the major 3rd of the B flat. Very cool sound, but having that open D ring throughout kind of gives a little bit of continuity, and it glues everything together. So once again, E5, G sus2, A4, and then a nice little blues run coming right out of it. Alright, now that's the first ending. The second ending goes like this. Just hold on to that 6th fret. That's the flatted 5th, so you're holding on to the most diabolical interval principle that exists in the musical universe, and that's exactly what we want to do, okay? The third ending is the same as the first. And the last ending, just anticipate that A, push it onto the end of that B4, and then hold it out with the A and D string. Alright, so you kind of create this sound, which is a double A, unison A. You're playing the tuning note in the middle of the song. How cool is that? Only Jerry Cantrell with his sunglasses on can properly pull off a tuning note in the middle of an actual song. Pretty damn cool. This whole bit will be considered the A section of the song, which basically alternates between this bridge verse that we just had and a guitar solo. So let's get into the first guitar solo that happens right after this riff is played all the way through the first time. Now that's some serious cruising. It's still just a blues, but boy, can that boy move. Here's the first lick. It's a pretty long, continuous motion, so I'm going to go through the whole thing. Here we go. Watch this. Pretty cool. So it's just an E minor pentatonic. That's all it is. It's not even a blues yet. Well, I guess the bend technically counts as the blues, but we have basically the 12th fret of the G and B like this, and going to the 12th of the D first. That actually creates an E minor 7th. Okay, so a G major on top of E equals E minor 7, by the way. And then we hit this. That goes to a regular E minor instead, alright? So E minor 7, E minor, down to the flat 7, 5th, flat 5th. Sorry, this is a blues. Silly me. 4th, flat 3rd. Alright, so once again, E minor 7, E minor, flat 7, 5th, flat 3rd, 4th, boom, and then to the flat 3rd, and then we basically kind of resolved there, but not really because we have to keep on going. And then we do a little bend release. That's totally blues, right? That's A going to B flat. That's the 4th to the flat 5th, baby. Watch this. Back to the root, to the flat 3rd, and then we cap it off with this. And that's before the end of that measure. Alright, so check this out. That's basically like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... That was completely wrong. Let's do that again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and... That was wrong as well. Let's count this for real this time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... I got it right that time. Third time's the charm, alright? And that caps off that measure. Alright, so first two measures just go straight through eighth notes. And then we hit this little slide. Now that's the first time we have any bit of a break, alright? Sliding from the 12 to the 14th, 12, 14, and landing on the flatted 3rd on the 12th fret of the G, alright? Very, very brief break, and then we do this. Alright, so that's basically just a nice bend and release, pull off, and then flat 7 to root resolution. One more time through. Beautiful sounds. I gotta get those sunglasses on because the sun is not out. The moonlight is what blinds me. The next section busts out those big old train horns. Foamers reunite. We got a heritage unit coming right through here. And here it is, a little shorter than the last one. Woo, very nice ending there, I must say. Now, it's more E minor blues type of stuff, but this time we're explicitly outlining the flat 5th. Check this out. You want to hit nice vibrato on that 12 and 12, and then go 15, 14, 12, to 14th, like that. That is the flatted 5th, the 4th, the flat 3rd going to the root. Alright, now we saw that in the chords before. Alright, that's the same exact thing, but up the octave. And with a slightly different rhythm, of course. And then a little variation on that second one. A little bend, one bend. And then just a little bit of an elongated phrase. But the idea here is that the melodic idea is that, right? We repeat it twice for a nice repetition. Then the very ending, all right, after coming off that E, which is the root, by the way, we're doing this. It's almost like a little metric modulation, too. We're hitting sort of like this triplet-like rhythm. And the drums also play a role in that as well, hitting some cool triplet sounds. They always do some really cool pocket drumming thing in this, between the guitar and the drums. Very, very cool. All right, pocket drumming between the guitar and the drums. Very strange stuff coming out of my mouth right now. But anyway, I'm on a roll. Watch. You have two half steps going on that. All right, this first one is on the note B. That's the fifth of the E chord. But a half step brings it up to a flatted 6, which sounds like this. Very, very tense and emotional interval. Alright, when you bend it, it makes it even more emotional, intense, and dark as well. And then the final note is just that half step on the 11th fret bending up to the flat 3rd, but then kind of coming down toward the end. But it's a very static note. You don't want any vibrato. So with all that in mind, let's pay attention to that again. Here we go. Big vibrato on the first. One single. And flatline that last one like a damn heart attack. So overall, we're dealing with a classic Jerry Cantrell blues solo, dealing a lot with the flat 5, hinging on the melody like that, and or the melody hinges on the flat 5th, I should say, and also with that little surprise at the end with the half steps. The arrangement here also gets more dense, as the 12-string acoustic comes back to play the rhythm underneath. It adds a percussive and rhythmic element to give the groove less breathing room than it had before, which is fine because this whole song has had nothing but breathing room since it started. The part also remains unchanged, unlike the electric guitar. The electric has this stop with the vibrato, whereas the 12-string keeps moving through solid 8th notes the entire time. Let's hear both guitar parts together. A nice contrast to act as a bed for a guitar solo. The louder, more dense arrangement underneath the guitar solo actually casts the main feature, the guitar solo, a little further into the background than it ordinarily would be. It's a little more obscured than some of Jerry's other solos because the rhythm is so layered and so lush and full. But this isn't really a problem, and it fits the vibe perfectly fine. And the reason being is because the solo itself is pretty simplistic, and I don't know, it sounds like it's kind of improvised as well. You know, there's a couple curveballs thrown in there, but mostly just sounds like a straight-ahead blues solo. So it's nothing that we're really missing out on anyway. It just fills in that little bit of space to leave room for another verse to come after. So, hey, kudos to you, Jerry Cantrell. And as you can tell, we're back to the 12-string for a little good old Seattle chime bag, if you know what I'm talking about. Now, this next section manifests itself very similarly to the A section, okay, because we have vocals on top. It's kind of like another verse. We're actually going to call it bridge verse 2. But there's this new acoustic 12-string part added, and the dynamic is also lowered. So we have a slightly different arrangement here, still sort of E-centric, but we also actually have a chord change as well. But the not reflected in the bass line, but reflected in the guitar part. So very, very cool on the part of Jerry Cantrell for adding some, you know, some extra stuff above the root note here to make it more interesting. So I'm going to call this A prime. Alright, so it's still an A section for this bridge because it's a verse, but it's a little bit different. It's mutated, so it's A prime. I'll play it slowly. Variations. Alright, very, very cool. It's kind of spooky sounding almost, and it has that classic Jerry Cantrell dissonance, especially on the second chord. Now the first part's almost like a bluesy thing. It's like an E minor 7th, I'll say. Because you're hammering into the second fret, that's flat 7 to root, to the flat 3rd, sliding in to the same flat 3rd. Alright? So in lieu of the open G, we're going to the 5th fret, which is the exact same note. But still hitting G and E on the top, so it's still an inverted E minor chord. So, E minor 7, and then right before the next downbeat, we're going to hit this like this. Alright, we're anticipating that measure just prior. Okay, 1/2 of a beat before, and we're completely shifting the pattern. Watch this. Almost sounds like a spooky Halloween house that I don't want anything to do with. That is an A minor add 9. Okay, so it's basically an A minor chord with a 9th on it. Beautiful, beautiful sounding chord. Very tense, very dramatic. It's basically the root, flat 3rd, the 9th, and the 9th up top as well. Alright, as we have A, C, B, B. ACBB, that's not ACDC, it's ACBB, the children's version of ACDC. ACBB, ACBB, rock and roll makes the world go round, DB. Here we go. You really want to make sure you're getting that exact pattern, because this is gridded with 8th notes the entire way through. Alright? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you want to make sure you're ending on that nice dissonance at the very end, okay? So just pay very close attention to what's going on there. And then the second ending is a little bit different. Same 2 chords though. Alright, so that's basically, that's just the same exact chord, but just strummed or plucked in a different manner. One more time. We're also landing on the 9th up top, a very hard downbeat, and taking a slight break. Okay, so that's really one of the only breaks we have during this part. We then come back around to repeat the first part. And then the final part simulates what happens on the bottom, but plays it on the top. Very, very nice. So 8th note centric, and you got to make sure you're taking your breaks in the proper location. Most of it just moves straight through. All right. And remember, upbeat of 4 prior to the next measure. That's when you got to hit the A. So one more time. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and then hold that out until the cows come home, or until Jerry Cantrell comes in on his motorcycle with a giant pair of sunglasses this big. Not street legal, by the way. Strangely enough, this 12-string riff falls under the category of, I had no idea it was even there until I really started to learn the song, alright? Been listening to Facelift forever since I pretty much picked up a guitar, you know, but I never even knew that this was even here. I didn't know it was so cool either, which kind of made me realize that this whole bridge section is meant to just drone on with the same idea. Remember, our real element here is this progression going the entire time. It's just a blues line going up and down over and over and over again, and that's what I really perceived when I was listening to it. But I didn't realize that this cool, colorful acoustic 12-string was over the top, and it was completely, it's completely in the foreground as well. And big dum-dum Michael didn't realize that it was there the entire time. So another cool thing about this, you know, kind of droning on and slowly mutating the idea as we go through to make it a little more interesting, but only by a very subtle margin. Throughout this second bridge verse, we have another Jerry Cantrell staple, and that is a continued solo that manifests itself through little fill-ins. Check this out. These two little flourishes are buried deep in the track and just add a little more atmosphere. The first one hints at an E minor 9. With the F sharp in there, it sounds kind of like a whale crying in an endless sea, which is followed by another whale crying in a less endless sea. That just outlines the flat 7 to the root. It's bluesy as hell, but with an ambient presentation. Here it is with the 12 string. It's just cool. The next guitar solo happens as section B, so all of the same orchestration as before, just with a different guitar solo on top. This solo features some similar conventions from the previous one, but also has a couple twists and turns as well, just like the last one. And the first one is completely conventional. Here we go, ready? Very cool, nice attitudinal blues riff. Jerry's got the tood, let me tell you. He didn't eat today. He didn't eat anything, so he's got a tood, and his eyes are turning gray. But like this, ready? Flat 7 to 1. A little bit of vibrato, and then before long, you're gonna hit this nice... That's like a 16th note run, but all downstrokes. That's how you get that articulation, because if you play alternate picking, it sounds like this. Doesn't sound quite as cool as the James Hetfield approach. Watch. You just get an opportunity to dig into each of those notes and frankly make it sound more bluesy, alright? So just one more quick time. It's just outlining the flat 7 root, flat 3rd, 4th, and going up to the flatted 5th and then just playing around with those same notes. Playing around in the sandbox, as they say. So it's basically like this. The next lick is where we hit something slightly less conventional. It's sort of like Black Sabbath. Here we go. Alright, and notice that a couple of those notes didn't have the same amount of vibrato. In fact, that first one doesn't have any vibrato at all. Alright? So this is what we call a unison bend. You're basically taking the note F sharp, which is the 9th, by the way, alright? It sounds like that, a very Jerry Cantrell-esque note. Taking that F sharp and you're bending this other G string note from an E, which is a whole step down from there, and then bending it into that same note until they're both in the same register. It creates a very cool chorusy effect. Listen again. Alright, you want to make sure they're right in the pocket, no wavering, alright? Nice chorusy effect between, alright? No vibrato either. Now this note also comes in at a peculiar time, okay? So right after the first lick, 3, 4. Basically comes in on beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And the second one comes in on beat 2. And basically holds it out on the note G, that's the flatted 3rd, with some vibrato this time, alright? So the first one, no vibrato. Second one, vibrato, just to give it a little extra crunch. And then we're going to double hit that. We're basically bending from the 10th up to what would be the 12th fret. That's the 5th, 4th, and flatted 3rd of the E minor. It's also Mi, Re, Do on G, but it's also Sol, Fa, Me in E minor, alright? So it's like E minor, E-I-E-I-O, Mary Had a Little Lamb in a minor key, alright? So let's hit that one more time. Here we go. Alright, pretty easy. We continue off of that, coming into another conventional blues line. And here we're just sliding into the 14th fret. Alright, and that is more E minor pentatonic stuff. Totally basic, just 14, 12. And then we do that real swift bend, release, pull off, and a gradual bend on that 14th fret. So as you're bending that 14th, you're actually hitting the 4th, the flatted 5th, and the 5th, and then coming up to the flat 7th, and letting those ring, creating an E minor 7th on the top. Alright, so very, very cool sound. And then you slowly release that as well, alright? And then play those two chords. So you're basically taking the static note here, unbent. Once you fully release that 14th fret, you hit this. Alright? So, starting from the very beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Really, really fast Dorian mode. Alright, so this is kind of like a train horn, but a double train horn. 2 heritage units foaming at the mouth like this. Alright, and it's kind of in a kind of erratic rhythm right there, right? Just like that, you're basically going, you're outlining like an A major chord. And then doing that half-step bend. Alright, now that half-step bend brings us to tritone and flat 7th territory. So that's almost like a half diminished chord, but just because it's a bend doesn't mean it's a half diminished chord, right? It's actually a stylistic change, alright? But still, you're touching on that flat 5th, but with both strings. And basically, coming off that, back into a standard E minor, right? So you're basically hitting A major, which is the major 4, just like I can't remember. That's the A major chord, the major 4, which has the C sharp on the top. I think that melodic Black Sabbath is the best way to describe that one. And once again, Jerry Cantrell is not dazzling us with anything. He's just keeping it cool. He's riding that riff and riding that E minor blues all the way through with those colorful notes, but not playing anything that's overly sophisticated. He touches on sophistication, but trust me, these licks are dive bar friendly. Alright, so go to your local tavern, chug some beers, and plug on in. Following that second guitar solo, we're hit with yet another bridge verse, which we can technically call bridge verse 3, but it's the second manifestation of A prime. Alright, so second time through A prime, but it's also not a conventional verse either, since Lane Staley has basically forgotten every word in his vocabulary other than the word I. Alright, so basically it's like this. Just blues licks, very slow, dirgy blues licks with the word I. Alright, that's basically it. So let's kind of get into that a little bit. And by get into it a little bit, I mean just talk about the orchestration. The only change in the orchestration here is the addition of the heavy guitar palm muting the riff underneath the 12 string. Let's separate the two to offer some perspective. Here's the 12 string. And here's the added palm mutes. All the notes are pretty much in line with what we've seen already, but those percussive mutes add more, well, percussion to the sauce, and just adds another layer of evolution to the song as it nears its closing lines. Let's hear both of these parts together. After running through those 5 bridge sections, we come back into the introduction, but as an outroduction. That's right, this is the outro of the song, and it basically comes out of that last transition riff like this. Alright, and then we kind of fade right into it. Same old story, we haven't seen it in a while, but this time we play it 3 times, and there's some things happening on top of it that help it develop to its final conclusion. Let's start with that heavy rhythm guitar on the bottom. It's still just a big beefy E power chord, but instead of holding it out, we play the same rhythm figure 3 times before finally ending hard on the last 2 eighth notes. The vocal here just continues to sing the word I. I guess Lane forgot his dictionary at home, but it outlines the 5th of the chord and the flat 7th. Keep in mind, this is still going on as the E morphs from a sharp 4 to a sus 4. The final vocal then comes in with the final line, I am alive. And this marks the end of the song. Alright everybody, thank you so much for coming along this journey. It's been a fun one. This was a little bit easier than my last video, which was a 12+ minute Dream Theater song. But this one gave me a little bit of a break. Just under 4 minutes, but a kind of a cool song, right? Simplistic. It's almost like a 2-tiered song experience. You start off with that intro to the blues riff with a little chorus. That goes around. That's like its own song. And then the second half is all that bridge stuff, repeating the same thing over and over again, but mutating it as it goes along, adding more verses, lyrical lines, and 2 guitar solos as well. All jam-packed in a relatively short period of time. Then, of course, we sandwich it, bookend it with the outro being the intro, but slightly different as well, as we just saw. All right? So once again, everybody, thanks a lot. Hope you're enjoying this content. If you'd like to further support the channel, please go to www.subscribestar.com/RomanOva Music or patreon.com/RomanOva Music. I have a bunch of tiers listed there, one of them being the $20 option, which is the RomanOva Guitar Gym series, alright? That's an exclusive series of videos where basically release a video every couple weeks, alright, just for you guys, and you get to tell me what it is you want to see. You also get a mini lesson every single week with that as well. So, you know, lots of different content. If you want to kind of sharpen up your skills and, you know, get contact with me in that kind of way, then that's cool, you know. You could also go to www.romanovamusic.com and you can get in direct contact with me. And if you need some help with lessons or coaching and whatnot, we can work something out and get you on the schedule and get you learning, all right? Get you learning, more intimate environment, one-on-one, just me and you, talking about guitar, talking about music, whatever it is you want to learn, okay? Yeah, everybody, that's about it. Oh, you can leave a tip on the PayPal as well. Don't forget about that. Yeah, that's about all I have to say. Leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, do all that kind of stuff, and help us grow even bigger and bigger and better, because I see a lot of great supportive comments here, you know. We're few, but we're proud, all right, of being music nerds to the nth degree, okay? So anyway, that's really all I have to say. Goodbye, Godspeed, and good luck with your life.